Hello everyone, welcome to this week's Gran Turismo 7 Daily Race and Strategy Guide. We're heading over to California, I do believe, and WeatherTech Laguna Seca Raceway. And we're in the ever popular Group 3 machinery for 14 laps around this dusty track. Tyrewear at ×9, fuel at ×3, the medium and the hard tyres are both available and both compounds are mandatory. BOP is on, and it's the low speed BOP, not the mid speed BOP that I've put there on the graphic. Damage is light, it's a formation start, and slipstream is real. And my memory's a little bit hazy because I'm carrying a little bit of a hangover as I do this commentary, but I do believe this is the first time we have headed to Laguna Seca in Gran Turismo 7, at least for Daily Race C, and fairly interesting settings to go with it. But let's move on to the strategy, and first things first, we are going to discuss the car that we're using. And of course we're in the Porsche 911 RSR. It seems to be fairly dominant in Group 3 at the moment, and I suspect it will be pretty strong around this track. I haven't tested that many cars, but of those that I have, this was definitely the quickest. It seems to be very well geared for this track, the Porsche, and yeah, it's also very good on tyre wear. It's not really a kind of high-speed track, obviously it's got a low-speed BOP. It's a handling track, the Porsche handles well. It's just a jack of all trades, let's be perfectly honest with you. I have no idea what other cars will be fast around here, but I will talk about MR cars, or some of the MR cars, a little bit later in the video, and the problems that you might well have with some of them as the race progresses. Moving on to the strategy, we're looking at the medium hard strategy first, and as ever, with the new tyre wear model, it's just basically a case of running these medium tyres until we run out of tread, and finding out what lap that's going to be. Once we've done that, once we've kind of basically ran out of tread, we move into the pits, we stick on the hard tyres, and we run to the end of the race. So we're approaching the end of lap 1 here. Let's jump forward and see how long we've managed to make these medium tyres last. And we rejoin the car halfway through lap 6, and you can see that it is the right rear tyre that is hurting the most out of all of them. Now, there is still a reasonable amount of tread there. I suspect we probably could have risked another lap, but we all know the perils of risking an extra lap on these tyres. There's no kind of gradual drop off in performance really with them. Once the tread goes, the car becomes undrivable. So I decided, let's just pit at the end of lap 6. I suspect that most people, with their kind of, most people's tyre wear, they'll probably not be able to do that extra lap 7, so I suspect lap 6 will be the pitting lap for most people that start on the medium tyres. And as ever, Laguna Seca has its notoriously long pit loss to contend with. It takes forever for the car to get into the box, not entirely sure what the driver's doing. It's nearly 26 seconds before the car actually becomes stationary. You turn the tyres around fairly quickly, I think it's about 5.9 seconds, there we go, 5.9 seconds, and then we come down the pit lane. All in all, you're going to lose about 26 seconds in the pits, so a big old pit loss, it has to be said, but that does give you some wiggle room to try and make some strategies work, try and give yourself some space on the track, which is always a good thing. And I always say, finding some clear track, putting in some good laps is the key to any strategy. In terms of fuel, it is at ×3, you are going to burn off a good bit of the fuel over the course of the race, but certainly no issues in terms of refuelling. So that's our pit stop made. Let's jump forward to lap 13, halfway through lap 13 here, and yeah, basically the hard tyres will last the 8 laps, or the 7 laps, or the 9 laps, however you ask of them. The hard tyres are going to have no trouble getting to the end of the race. But what I want to discuss at this point is a couple of videos that I've watched recently on other YouTubers' channels, and I think they're quite pertinent to this race here. And if you've not seen them before, then it'll give you, there's some good stuff in there to understand, maybe how the tyres are working on these cars, and also a technique in terms of your driving that I think will be very helpful around this track as well, particularly if you're in the Porsche or any other MR car. Now, the first video I want to kind of direct you to after this, of course, watch the rest of this video, is Doughtinator's video on tyre temperatures. Now, tyre temperature is not something that PD give us access to within the game itself, but we do know from other people who have kind of, let's just say, played about with the files, that tyre temperature is a thing, and there is an app that you can get to actually look at your tyre temperatures yourself. And the Doughtinator has very ably demonstrated that in some of the MR cars, and in his case he used the Lamborghini, that the rear tyres on the MR cars become overheated and the car can become very difficult to drive. Now I don't think the Porsche suffers this problem anywhere near as much as some of the other MR cars, but I did try the Audi round here and I found that even though the tyres were still in decent shape, the rear end of the car became ever more unstable lap after lap after lap. So do bear that in mind, that I don't think it's a problem for the Porsche, but for maybe a car like the Lamborghini or the Audi or the Ferrari, it will be a problem. And the other video I want to direct you to is Z28's video regarding downshifts and how to kind of downshift in a much more sensible manner, which will keep the back end of the car stable. Pretty pertinent for the Porsche here, because I definitely found that, you know, the back end does try to wiggle around a little bit, and by using that technique that Z28 kind of demonstrated, and I've always had a little bit of a problem downshifting a little bit too fast, I definitely found the rear of the car a little bit more stable. So do check out both those videos if you want to. I shall leave links to them in the description below. So whilst I've been talking there, we have moved on to the alternative strategy. We're looking at the hard medium strategy, and yeah, also seen me make a little bit of a gaffe by cutting the pit lane exit. I had a little bit of a brain fade moment, totally forgot I was going to pit at the end of lap 6, and yeah, we're doing the alternative strategy here. We're going to attempt to do 8 laps on the medium tyres. Now the reason I'm going to give this a try is because the fuel being at times free. Once the car burns off a good bit of fuel, there's definitely a big difference in tyre life. Now, this is something I'm going to test in a video later on this week. How big a difference does fuel make to your tyre wear? Because it definitely, once the car gets lighter, you definitely can stretch the tyres a little bit further. The question here is we're going to be able to stretch these medium tyres to 8 laps. Now we've jumped forward here to lap 14, and you can see we've not had too many issues. Lap times are still pretty stable, still pretty good. But we are definitely running that rear right at danger levels at the moment. We're still trying to burn off our 3-second penalty that we correctly picked up for cutting the pit lane entry. And coming up to the corkscrew here, I was pretty sure this tyre was going to give way. Do we get through? Are we going to get through these last few corners? We're not a million miles away. Oh, big oversteery moment there. And I was pretty well, I was convinced of the corkscrew. I knew 100% the car was going at this corner here. So we didn't manage to do the 8 laps, but the 7 laps is quite comfortable. And as I said, with the car having a good bit of the fuel burned off in the first stint, you can definitely stretch those tyres a little bit further. But I don't think, well, we're not too far away from doing 8 laps here, but I think for most people you can definitely do an extra lap on the medium tyres if you do the alternative strategy by starting on the hard tyres. So it'll be a 7-7 split on the hard tyres, maybe 8 laps on the hard tyres, or a 6-8 split if you're incredibly good on tyre wear. There may be some cars out there that'll be more comfortable doing that as well, maybe the BRZ. Again, I can't test every car for these videos, but yeah, 8 laps, we died. Moving on to testing an FR car, we're in the Hyundai here. I like the Hyundai, it was one of my favourite cars in GT Sport. I actually used it around Autopolis a couple of weeks ago in the Group 3 race and actually found it to be reasonably competitive. It's definitely not Porsche level competitive, as you can see from the lap times, but it's only a few tenths off, and we're kind of getting a little bit more confidence as we did more and more laps on it. We did the 7-7 split here. We used the alternative strategy, the sort of hard medium strategy. 7-7 split was fairly comfortable in this. Again, I can look at the reason for kind of doing this test here was just to see what tyre you were going to be limited on in an FR car, and it is that front right, which is probably what you would expect. Looking at the tread left there, we've done 7 laps on the mediums here in this FR car. I'm 100% sure we're not getting an 8th lap. Had we had to do another lap, this car would almost certainly have a front right failure. So that's the cars covered. I think that's the strategy covered as well, but let's do a quick recap on the strategy as we have some replay footage playing in the background. If you're starting on the medium tyres, I would only really recommend starting on the medium tyres if you're towards the front of the grip. You can actually use the pace differential of those medium tyres over the hard tyres. Then you're looking at pitting at the end of lap 6. There is a case to be made to try and do that additional lap if you're good on tyres, or if you maybe it won't be the Porsche that is the strong car here. But again, it's just a case of running those medium tyres until you run out of tread, because as I've pointed out many times, they don't really lose that much performance. It's not like we're looking for a crossover lap anymore. You're basically just running the softest compound of tyres for as many laps as you actually still have some tyre tread on them. But yeah, pit at the end of lap 6, maybe lap 7 if you're very good in tyres, and then you run the hard tyre to the end of the race. The alternative strategy, and I think most people will be doing this one because of the difficulty of overtaking at Laguna Seca, I would recommend doing 7 laps on the hard tyres and then doing 7 laps on the medium tyres. Because you burn the fuel off on the first stint, it makes the car a little bit lighter, but we're borderline being able to do 7 laps on the medium tyres in the first stint, but with that fuel burned off, it is definitely much more possible on the second stint. If you really want to try and risk a strategy and you're very good on tyre wear, you can possibly do 8 laps. We were only a couple of corners from achieving it, and we never really did too much tyre saving over the course of that one. But I think that's pretty much it for the strategy. Let's move on to a lap guide of Laguna Seca Raceway. We're in the Porsche 911 RSR, about to go over the start finish line and up over the crest of the hill and down towards turn 1. You're looking for the number boards on the right hand side of the track. I think it is the number 3 board that I use. There's a white line on the track as well. Tricky double apex corner, you're trying to clip both of those apexes before you power out. Looking for just before the number 2 board for turn 2. You seem to get so much understeer in this corner, very easy to run wide. And you're looking for the end of the curb on the left hand side as you swing the car into turn 4 here. I think it's turn 4. Anyway, be very careful on the exit of all these corners, very easy to clip a wheel and spin off. The number 2 board for this kind of left-hander here is a little bit of camber on the inside. Do try and catch that to help the car round. And now this is the brave corner here, number 2 board, a little bit of a dab at the brakes, maybe a downshift and throw the car in. This is where you'll see most people spin. Now we have the world famous corkscrew. I used the number 4 board on the right hand side, down into first gear to get the car rotated. Truly challenging corner in cockpit view, I must say. Just thread the car through here, let it come off the power, just let the car roll into this one. Again, very easy to run wide, and it's the start of the curb on the left hand side, and try to use the camber for both those corners as well. Number 3 board for the final corner, tricky little, almost a hairpin I guess, pretty tight. Down into first gear in the Porsche, you will get a little bit of wheel spin as you exit. Try to avoid that, should help your tyre wear as well. But that's a lap of Laguna Seca in the Porsche. Do check out some of the other lap guides out there for much more comprehensive braking points and tips for getting a car around here. But definitely a much better combination this week for Daily Race C. Definitely much more appealing to stream as well. I think you'll probably see this one being quite popular amongst the streamers and just the general player base. And yeah, I'm going to be definitely streaming this one a number of times. Definitely much happier with the fact we can actually use some different cars as well. Might not be as competitive as the fastest car, but yeah, I don't think they're too far off, as has been the case in some of the more recent Daily Race Cs where we're very much being kind of shoehorned into using one car. So do join me for some of the streams later in the week if you can. It'd be great to have you along, but we'll wrap the video up there. Thank you very much for watching. Please hit the like button or the subscribe button if you have enjoyed the video and found it useful. Thank you very much for watching. I shall catch you on the next one. Goodbye now.